right. So this one is going to be for people who are interested in joining the military and people who are, thinking about making a career for themselves in the military. And this is just in general, um, for people who are whether you're trying to be in the army or the Marines or Navy. This is just, my take based on, my time in the military, my 4 years. What you're going to things that you just have to think about or be wary of, and things you should expect before you join. Because some people don't really know what's going on until they get in, and then they're like, "Damn, what the hell?" So first, before you join, right? You have to realize that you're going to be signing a government contract for 4 years or whatever amount of years. Some contracts are 2 years. Some people got 4 years. Most people, I think, the main contract is 4 years. And of course, you have to make sure to check it because, yeah, like some people don't even realize how long they're in. They're signing these contracts, they're signing the name off, and they're in these contracts, and then they're finding out later, like, oh shit, I got a 5 year contract. What the hell? Like you have to make sure you're looking. You can't just sign off on things, and you have to make sure you understand what they're showing you because you're going to be filling out a lot of paperwork. But anyway, so of course you have to make sure you know what you're signing. Next, you need to make sure that you're getting the right job. You know, you need to make sure you're getting a job that is a decent job because you can end up with a shitty job. There are a lot of shitty jobs in the military, and you don't want to be someone that's placed into one of those jobs. Um, I was in the Marines, and I know for a fact that you know there were people who didn't pay attention to the job that they picked, but their recruiter just gave them whatever, and then the next thing they know, they were cleaning porta potties, or they were being cooks. They were doing something that was like, nah, they were not trying to do that job. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you don't want to be one of those people. You do not want to be doing a job. All right, you do not want to be doing a job that you did not sign up for, or you don't feel like this is what you signed up for. So you have to make sure that you're doing the right job. All right, and it's best to do something that's going to help you when you get out. 'Cause you got people doing stuff. They're going in, and they're doing something that they're not. It's not going to help them when they get out. So like if you do something like welding while you're in the military, or you do some type of what the fuck, you do something that's just going to be a real skill. It's best to do something that's going to give you a real skill so that when you get out, you are ready, you have it, and you're going to have the military experience that's going to push you over everybody. That's what you want. You want to be, you want to be, you want to have the skills and the military background to go together. Right there, you could go in a little 4 or 5 years, get out, boom, you landed a good job and you're making hella money. But on to the next point. Um, you want to make sure that you are, you know, in the right mind state or you have the right personality for what you're trying to do, you know? Like if you're going to be if you're thinking about, if you're trying to be a gung ho and you're thinking about infantry, you better be, the certain mentality. Because it's, first of all, it's the good old boys club. A lot of the dudes you're going to be with, they're going to be Southern, don't tread on me types, dipping everywhere. Uh, they're gonna be politically a certain way. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna have certain beliefs, so you better be prepared. Their mindset is gonna be a certain way. All right. So if you're like a, you know, very liberal EPIO type, like don't, yeah, you might want to keep that to yourself because they're not really trying to hear that. And I say that's kind of like, how the military is. Like it's going to be a lot of conservative type people. Now, there's of course going to be liberal people, but a lot of them people are not, conservative or they're not running around, caring about the most liberal of things. They don't want to hear about, taking a knee during the anthem and those types of things. They're not trying to hear that. So that's just how that is. Um, you just gotta be careful, and you gotta be careful what you're saying, which goes into maybe another point. Like you have to know who you're talking to, and the saying the wrong thing or saying something to someone can put you in a weird situation. All right, so the military's buddy buddy. You can get ahead based on how cool you are with certain people. You can have an easier time, you can have a harder time based on how they perceive you. Very based on things can be very based on how they perceive you. If they see you as like a difficult person and you're not really somebody who uh, is gonna like help their unit or is you're not somebody that they feel is their type of guy or gal, they're not really gonna be saying good things about you. So you're not really gonna hear, like, oh man, let's promote this person, or oh man, like, this is a uh, stellar marine or a stellar soldier, stellar sailor. Like they're not gonna be hyping you up, and you're probably gonna hear things about yourself that you're gonna hear about you're gonna hear your name in unpleasant ways. So you have, like I said, you have to, watch who you're talking to. Like some people, when I was in, you got people that go out here and they'll just like they'll just complain about, let's say that they'll just complain about their sergeant. There'll be a lower rank and they'll complain about their sergeant to, you know, someone who's a snitch, or a person who likes to, who's gonna relay that to someone else, and then next thing you know, you're getting blasted for talking shit about a sergeant. You got to know who you're talking to because there's a lot of snitches in the military. And I'm talking about snitch like there's people out in the military who like to snitch for no reason. Like it's not gonna give them any type of gain. It's not something serious. It's not like, oh man, like this guy stole something, or this guy, he's not really working out, he's faking it, or this guy's, always showing up to work drunk, or serious. It's like you got people that like to tell about, stuff like, oh, he he uh he went like 4 miles further than he was supposed to for the weekend. You got people who like to tell on little stuff, or they like to look at they'll take like a post from what you said online and try to blow it up or whatever. Like, they'll try to make a big thing out of nothing. They'll get into your personal business sometimes and try to make it a conflict with your work. So you gotta watch out for those types. 'Cause they can your business, your personal business. You really have no business when you join. Like always, they're gonna look at your social media. You say anything you want. If you say the wrong thing and people realize you're in the military, you're gonna face some repercussions. So you have to think about what you're saying when you're in once you put the uniform on or once you join. Yeah, you're in uniform. As soon as you get out, you're in uniform. So you have to make sure you're saying the right thing. Um, yeah, like I said, you have to make sure you know who you're talking to. You can't tell everybody everything. I make sure I try to see what type of mentality people come around with. Because I'm talking about like, this hierarchy likes to like, what I'm saying, like blast everybody for he's always, doing this, you gotta watch out for this guy, and someone else here, like, and now I look like I'm just out here complaining about, this higher up and what they're doing. Now I look at, he's gonna come at me, you know, and this other person you told me you ain't really getting nothing out of it. You want to go see up and suck off, higher ups and go telling everybody, you know, that's to me that's one of the things that takes place in the military, or things that I saw a lot in the military during my time in the military that I had to watch out for. A lot of tattletales. Tattletaling is everything to some of these people. So yeah, you got to watch out for that. And then, like I said, you got to watch out for uh, what you post on social media. You know, uh, you can have security issues and stuff like that from just posting anything. You need to be smart, and that's you're gonna when you if you join, you're gonna get training about that. You gotta understand, like, there's certain sensitivity about uh, certain things you can and can't talk about, or there's certain you gotta understand that you can't post about everything that you're doing, because that's what do you call it? That's like a sensitive type of thing. But if you join, you find out. You'll get what I'm saying. But anyway, continuing on. Um, my next point. You of course have to be in generally good shape, and you can't be somebody who has weight problems. If you have history of, like, heart problem and stress and stuff like that, it's probably a better idea that you don't join. Especially if you're trying to join, like, the Army, the Marines. Like, these are not branches you want to play around with, being not having the right uh, weight or being in good shape, because you're always going to be physically uh, moving around and physically tested. And so, yeah, you do not want to be having problems uh, as it pertains to weight and things like that, because yeah, you're gonna be you're gonna be out of there. You most likely won't make it 4 years, and yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of crazy workouts if you join the right unit in the Marines. I'm sure the Army too. Like, you don't want to be a person who doesn't like to work out, and you're joining these either these two branches, because you're gonna be finding out that running around uh, in gear and doing all this type of training, combat training and things like that, is not fun if you don't like to work out, and you're gonna hate your life. You're gonna be running around somewhere. It's probably gonna be hot as shit. You're gonna be wearing your uh, camouflage utilities. You're gonna have all types of. Uh, you have a pack on. It's called an assault pack. It's gonna be a little tan backpack. We're gonna have all types of stuff in it, that you got to take with you, and you're gonna be running around with it. You might have a rifle with you. You might be running around, going through obstacle courses, climbing ropes, and doing all types of stuff. And you don't want to do that. If you don't like working out, you're gonna hate your life if you're doing something like that. Okay, so beware if you don't like to work out with the branch that you join. Another thing is, you have to realize that you no longer get to talk however you want. You have to rank is everything. If you're ranked by someone who might be right about something, and because they have a higher rank, they get their word goes, and you have to just take that on the chin. many times. But if you feel like someone is of a higher rank and they're abusing their authority, you got to make sure you get that. You take that up with what they call the chain of command, and you got to let people know, like, hey, this person is abusing their rank. They're trying to make me do, unlawful and unauthorized things, and they're using their rank to push their weight around. You could do that, and then, see what happens to get the answer that you need, um, so you can get out of that. And to continue with the rank thing, like I said, rank is everything. You got to know that, you know, you gotta have some rank loyalty. If you're a lower rank, you gotta be loyal with your rank buddies, because you got some people that like to be like, they're like rank sellouts. They like to suck up their lower rank, but they like to suck up to the higher ups. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got privates and PFCs that go out their way to go tell on another PFC about something that, this, like I said, is not significant, to go and please some sergeant. It's like, you didn't get anything out of it. Why you being a sucker? You're supposed to have rank loyalty, because that sergeant, anytime, they're not gonna look out for you unless they have to. So you got people out here sucking up to folks and getting nothing out of it. They just want to get some feel good attention from the higher ups, who are just gonna be like that. You know, they're gonna yell at somebody, and then they're gonna move on. Yell at people, call them idiots, and then whatever. So, don't be that person. You got a lot of, like I said, you got a lot of snitchy type people who like to tell for, something that's not going to do anything for you, you know. Um, and yeah, so, have some rank loyalty if you're not a higher up, and realize that these higher ups they don't give a shit about you, other than like lip service. For a lot of them is just lip service. They just tell you what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do, and how they don't want to catch you messing up. And you just got to know how to, navigate. You gotta be smart. You gotta be slick. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna underage drink, you gotta be smart about this shit. And I'm telling you, look, the reality is everybody's underage drinking. Because you're on base all the time. If you're active duty, you're gonna be on base. There's gonna be nothing to do. People are gonna be watching TV and games, and spending all types of money. Buying pizza and whatever. And guess what? People are gonna be drinking alcohol. And you, as an underage person, you think all these guys just want to sit around all day, you know what I'm saying, uh, just watching TV? They're gonna start drinking and shooting the shit. Like, that's the reality. That's what they're gonna do. And so, uh, you just gotta you just gotta be smart about this shit. You cannot get drunk. And if you're going to do that, you have to be with certain people. When I was drinking and all that, I was hanging out with the same group many times, and I knew they weren't like a tattletale type of people. They wasn't gonna just do all this little snitching and stuff like that. And I wasn't that type of person either. So if someone was drinking around me and I knew they were underage, I made sure they wasn't gonna go too far. And I'd be like, "Yo, dude, you gotta chill. Like, what I'm saying? Like, we gotta get back to base. If like we were drinking off base and we're going back to base and they were like acting up in the car, I'd be like, yo, we have to pull them to the side and be like, yo, you gotta calm down, because you about to get us all fucked up. And same thing on base. If people was getting too drunk and we knew it was underage, we had to get them, like, you know pull them to the side or hide them in the barracks and be like, yo, you gotta stop. You gotta stop, because you're gonna get everybody in trouble. And we gotta get them to calm down, sober down, and get it together, pull it back in. Uh, So yeah, if you're underage drinking, you gotta be smart. You gotta know your limits. You can't be out there just knocking down everything. 'Cause you got people out there, they're just like boom, boom, they get crazy with alcohol, and yeah, so they get crazy with alcohol, and they think that they feel invincible after drinking, thinking that nothing's gonna happen. It's like, nah, dude, now you're stupid drunk. You're drunk to the point where you can't even function. So be smart because you can lose your rank and you possibly get kicked out if you're continuously underage drinking, and then also of course you might do something belligerent after that, so that might get you in more trouble. Because I've seen people get drunk and then they start fights and do some dumb shit. But that's there. The next thing, what's the next thing? Look, if you're mentally not all there, or you feel like you can crack under pressure, unless you're joining like the Air Force or something, maybe even the Navy. I don't know. I feel like the Navy got some bullshit though, like bullshit you got to deal with on the job. But yeah, if you're trying to join the Army and Marines and you're not mentally, you're usually stressed out, or you can kind of crack. I'd say stay away from the Marines and Army because they will test it. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't care about um, protecting your mental health. So they're all about the stupid games. All right, Marine Corps. I know for sure the Marine Corps is all about testing people's you know mental sanity with all the fuckery, the games they like to play. They like to make you get up at 6 o'clock, wait around to 8 o'clock, standing around with your rifle, cleaning it, to then go out to the field at 10 o'clock and wait around all day for lunch and yell at folks and tell folks to shut the fuck up and da 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 da. You know, like you gotta know where your limits are. If you feel like you can't deal with someone like yelling in your face and you gotta say yes sir or no sir, then do not join, especially the Marine Corps, because yeah, these types of things will test your limits. And there's many times where someone's gotten in my face and all that, and had to yes sir or no sir out of it. There's just nothing else you can do. You have to fall in line. You know what I'm saying? And that's all it is. Like you got to understand that you join. You're gonna be a lower rank, and you have to work your way up. And when you join and you're new, you know, uh, this is where you have the highest chance of getting in trouble. And so, and you're gonna be a new person with no experience, and you have to basically be a sponge. You have to take, uh, you're gonna take some shit from some people that's higher up than you. You're gonna have a corporal that's not gonna be playing games on stop you. You're gonna have, a sergeant or whatever the army equipment is like that. You have a specialist, first class or whatever they call it. Marine Corps, I know they got petty officers. Uh, the higher up you go, whatever rank, you don't want to mess with them the higher up they go. Yeah, so like, so to continue with that, the higher they go, the more rank you see on them, the more, you don't want them on your case. It's better to get yelled at by E4 or E5 than to get yelled at like, E8, E9. If you get yelled at them, it's almost cool. Like, if you're already like at a reputation and you get yelled at by them, that's like, all the lower rank people that's above you, like on the E4s and E5s, you're giving them free And if you do that, you prevent making it through the entirety of the conference. The next thing is, you gotta make sure that you understand whatever, you know, before you do any drinking or anything like that, any type of party, anything, you have to understand your unit's rules. You have to realize what kind of office setting you're in, what type of whatever. If you join, once you get through through training and everything, you learn. Like I'm talking about, like once you get to your destination, like after basically where you end up checking in, and you know if you go through training and you finish all the training and you have your job and like basically this is when you get your job. Like you finish the training that you have to do. You know, to to learn how to do your job, and then they send you to your location where you basically check in. All right, so once you check in, you have to get all your stuff and everything like that. You find out where your barracks is going to be. Your barracks is where you live. Uh, your headquarters, your basically like the apartments where you live uh, on base. You have to realize that it is. Dang, what was I saying? It's important that you talk to your NCOs and things like that and get the you understand the restrictions, all right? You understand the restrictions, yeah, and then you understand like the things you can and cannot do during the weekend, and understand all that. You want to understand the things that you can and can't get away with, and you have to make sure you understand the order, because there's gonna be like a military order that tells you, you know, the restrictions on certain things and uh, the way basically the way you the order on how to conduct yourself, how to dress, and all that. There's always an order like, okay, you can't have tattoos on this part of your body, or hey, you can't go out and uh, whatever, you can't go out by yourself. You have to go out with a buddy, or hey, you can't go, you know, if you're in Japan, you can't go out here and go to this location because this is a banned location. You have to make sure you understand what you're doing when you get there. All right, because not knowing is not going to be an excuse to the wrong person. If you're with the wrong person, if you're the wrong higher up or the wrong person you have to answer to, yeah, that could be a bad day. So you need to make sure that you are knowing what's going on. And then the next thing, you need to understand that there's a level of hazing, okay? And they say stuff like it's gone and it's changed. I haven't been in for a few years, but I know it's still going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, and basically hazing, like when I was in, it's called playing games. So they might make you, let's say you're working on a jet, they might make you run around and check each jet. You know what I'm saying? The jets might be, there might be like 30 jets in a hangar, a flight hangar, and you might have to run around and look at each jet and look for whatever they tell you to go look for as a new guy. And you might not find anything that they're looking for, and they just keep playing games to make you run around. You know what I'm saying? Hazing could be, you know what I'm saying, they have you out here Cleaning rifles, cleaning everybody's rifles. Because they said you didn't show up to a, you forgot to show up to something. Hazing could be, saying you doing hella, they have you doing hella push-ups and sit-ups and crunches and all types of crazy IT, basically what they call IT, they're ITing you. Give you some crazy PT, physical training. They might make you do all that type of stuff to punish you for whatever they feel that you did wrong. There's a level of hazing. There's all types of stuff they can do to hate you. You know what I'm saying? They could make you feel day like a motherfucker at work. You know what I'm saying? Have you wiping everything down and cleaning everything down. They can have you field day to the point they can have you Chinese field day. Take everything out of your room, put it outside, clean the whole inside your room, take everything, put it back inside. And maybe you can take it outside again. Imagine that. You're taking all the furniture out. You have to take all the furniture outside your home, clean inside your home, and then bring it back inside. You would hate your life. So, you know what I'm saying? Understand that these things can all happen if you sign that contract. And, there's no going back until, uh, you get discharged, honorably or dishonorably.